First off, thanks for reception to the Dante design video. I'm absolutely chuffed with the response to it, and along with Cloud, it's nice to see that there's an audience for character design videos from slightly different styles of characters. Expect to see more of a mixture in the future. In the comments for Dante, there was a fair amount of reference to Nero, and I can't hide the fact that I'm a big fan of the character. So I thought it would be very interesting to look at just how much he's changed between Devil May Cry 4 and 5, because like me, I'm sure some of you had your perception of the character change quite a lot by the recent entry in the series. Nero, our younger take on the protagonist against Dante's overpowered, confident one, really comes into his own this time around, with positive aesthetic improvements and a much stronger narrative arc. Though he's one of the highlights of the franchise at the moment, he wasn't always one for me, and today we're going to look at the changes that made this character that much greater. I'm the artist Mark Flynn, and let's find out how Devil May Cry 5 improved Nero's design. At this time, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell as I push forward to my goal of 20,000 subscribers. Characteristically wild, quite immature, young, and very passionate. At the same time, he is kind of a rebel. These words from Devil May Cry 4 producer Hideki Kamiya sum up Nero at his basis and would be the ethos of his original appearance. Making his debut in this fourth installment of the franchise, Nero took the helm as the primary protagonist, with Dante watching from the sidelines, providing support here and there and picking up some of his own missions much later on. Why was this done? Well, given Dante's evolution through the previous games, producers just couldn't conceive of a way to make the character vulnerable. He had become older, wiser, stronger, and had so many abilities and strengths that they couldn't envision crafting a compelling story surrounding him. They needed a weaker character to mould the game around and push forward the story. Enter Nero, the inexperienced youth with a lot to learn. Playing as the character would now give gamers something to aspire to, helping this new hero develop his skills and hopefully bring him up to Dante's level. As well as this, the character's design was intended to attract some new potential players for the franchise too. And I guess it actually did work for the most part. I was aware of Devil May Cry from its initial release and had my fair share of backseat gaming, watching friends play through 1, 2 and 3, but I didn't buy a single entry in the series until 4. So what did I think of Nero? I was the new target demographic after all. Meh. He was a mixed bag. I never loved nor hated Nero, but he wasn't a character I was particularly enthused by. But while I was quite apathetic about him, there were certainly things I did like. At the time of release, I was 18 years old and Nero is around age 19 in this title. So from an age perspective, I could put myself in his shoes quite easily, ignoring the hordes of demons of course. His design, again by Hideki Kamiya, was also pretty solid. He's clearly inspired by Dante and Virgil and a modernised hybrid of them both. The long silver hair is here once again, though Nero's whole sense of style feels a bit more scene kid than the previous human-demon hybrids. He makes use of a red and black hooded jacket rather than Dante and Virgil's old school and gothic style attire. He also makes use of boots and holsters, not too far removed from Dante. In fact, the whole look kind of feels like Dante Light Edition. Nero's key difference lies with his red and blue demon arm, a manifestation of his demon heritage that lies on the surface. His sword could also be revved like a motorcycle. I don't know why I thought this was so cool, but it is, alright? One of the coolest things about the character though was his potential. There was a level of mystique that surrounded Nero in this game that was very appealing. He was said to be a descendant of Sparda, but we weren't really sure what his relationship to Dante and Virgil was. Hidden powers have always appealed to me in forms of media like this. Son Gohan in Dragon Ball Z comes to mind, so seeing Nero channel his inner demon on a smaller scale to Dante, as well as being able to use Virgil's Yamato sword, only led me to believe that bigger things could come for the character down the line. This was exciting for me to think about, but it only happened on a smaller, weaker to Dante scale in Nero's debut entry. Speaking of demonic abilities, Nero's Devil Bringer, that's his demon arm for the noobs out there, completely changed the gameplay style up from Dante in the best possible way. Juggling enemies and keeping up combos was an absolute dream when using Nero's Devil Bringer to pull in foes, and it really did make Nero stand apart from Dante's playstyle for the better. Regardless of the things that I did enjoy, and despite his age and modernised at the time aesthetic, I didn't particularly aspire to be be like Nero. His teen angst-inspired energy and his main narrative arc just wasn't all that compelling to me. His love story with Kairi showed him to be very much human, but I found it to be a bit of a drag, and along with his silly little headphones, the character just felt like a little bit of a try-hard, angry teen that hung out in the park with the rest of the emos at my college. He was completely overshadowed and upstaged by Dante in each of their appearances. Of course, this was by design, but it left me wanting more of Dante and less of Nero, and despite loving the character's playstyle and finding nothing overtly offensive about his character design, I just didn't care for him at all. I still liked him, I just wasn't that thrilled about his story as it played out. Generally speaking, audiences were pretty receptive to the character, Nero's playstyle was well received, and the character wasn't rejected. But it wasn't enough for Capcom. They needed more of that younger demographic. Of course, we mentioned this last time, but the DMC reboot, yes, that did take place in an alternative universe by the way, left Nero by the wayside in favour of a much more edgy take on our good friend Dante. I've had my fair share of comments that display some sympathy for Dante and the game he stars in, and I must agree somewhat. The game itself had style, great graphics and strong gameplay, but was a complete timing misfire from Capcom, and its reception really did suffer because of it. That's not to say they didn't learn from this though, and there are elements of this Dante that I think actually impacted Nero for the better. Nero returned to the franchise and made only his second in-game appearance in Devil May Cry 5, and it's amazing just how much more I liked the character this time around in comparison. While some of this is down to intentional decisions, some of it is simply down to timing. Following up DMC, which was received by hardcore fans like a turd in the wind, what character did we first get a glimpse of in the awesome E3 reveal trailer of the game? Nobody was actually sure to begin with. The design was very different to what we had seen previously. Was this another short-haired young Dante? Was this DMC reboot number 2? And then he revved his sword, and the rest was history. Nero being the first character to appear in DMC5 is symbolic. His appearance confirmed the series was back, and in doing so, I associated him with being something that the franchise needed. He was back to save the Devil May Cry name, and alongside Dante, as it was later revealed, he was going to do it by being stylish, coming into his own, and with a score to settle. So how exactly did they improve the design of Nero this time around? Well, to start with, he had a much better aesthetic, which immediately set him apart from Dante and his Dante-like vibe that he had in the previous game. A dark blue jacket was the choice of clothing this time around, with darker boots, jeans, and a somewhat casual burgundy jumper. It's a loose relation, but there is a tiny bit of the rebooted Dante in here. Not much, probably not even 5%, but it's just enough to make Nero feel like a completely different character. It shows through in his personality, he's much more quick-witted, he has better lines, and he's clearly learned from Dante how to own the stage. He comes across much more like an action hero, and it's much more enjoyable to watch. But more compelling than pure character traits and design points is the journey that Nero goes on this time. His whole arc in DMC5 is infinitely more satisfying, feels more important, and establishes the character as a coming-of-age hero. He starts the story as backup for Dante, and while we can see an obvious change in Nero from the previous game, he is ultimately no help against the Demon King Urziel. That is probably pronounced wrong. Being described by Dante as dead weight absolutely cuts through Nero to his core, because he knows it's true. Dante's statement is also indicative of his own overconfidence, as Dante can't beat Urziel either. For the first time in a long time, Dante is completely outclassed, beaten down, and defeated at the hands of the demon. As the story progresses, we find out that prior to this, Nero's angst this time around is due to his missing arm. His Devilbringer was stolen from him alongside the Yamato, which he acquired in 4. It's a somewhat graphic display of what Nero has actually been through, all without kicking up much of a fuss. It makes us understand immediately why he is so driven this time around. A dude straight up stole his arm. It's much more compelling than the love story he had in 4. His Devilbringer has been replaced by a robotic Devilbreaker arm this time around, which functions similarly but has a whole bunch of new chaotic elements to it that are just a joy to experiment with. Bonus cool points: first we had Revi sword, now we have flying robot arm. Absolutely incredible. Towards the conclusion, we learn that the figure that stole the Yamato and became Urziel is Dante's brother Virgil, and in a shock twist we discover that he is also father to Nero. Dante goes to end the war with his brother whilst leaving the dead weight behind, and although he acknowledges Nero's power, he puts the little boy in his place, deciding for him that he won't be tasked with taking down his own father. To end his arc, Nero, sick of being ignored in the greater scheme of things, decides against heading home, hangs up the phone on the love of his life, and rushes into battle against Dante and Virgil, determined to settle things his own way. Aiming to end their battle and leave them both alive, Nero unlocks his full potential, his Devil Trigger form, and in the process grows back a human arm complete with some of his Devil Bringer abilities. It's a realization of power that again reminds me of Gohan, this time against Cell, as both characters unlock their potential via their own unique means. Although Nero's is under slightly different circumstances, of course, no heads were smushed in the production of this video, to my knowledge at least. He arrives in the battle just as powerful as both of the siblings, bitch slaps Dante to one side like dead weight in a literal sense, before having the game's final showdown with his father, and putting an end to the sibling rivalry. He is finally Dante's equal. Arc complete. Now, this is a complete personal take and an extra level of depth, but despite this Nero being modelled on male model Carl Baker, Nero has a striking resemblance to All Elite Wrestling's Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, if you aren't familiar with him, is basically professional wrestling royalty. The son of wrestling legend Dusty Rhodes, Cody made his break for the big time in WWE, the biggest wrestling promotion in the world, rising through the ranks from a rookie to the upper mid-card. Despite being popular, and quite frankly turning every opportunity he got into solid gold, he never really got the chance to showcase himself on a main event level, and over time was made into a joke, and the company he once loved showed him that it didn't actually think he was capable of more. So he quit. He took the independent scene by storm and is now one of the major players in a wrestling promotion he helped create. He has put his middle finger up to the system that he hated and has made a new reality for himself. Despite this being a massive reach, there's a synergy with Cody's real life story and Nero's journey, and if you're a fan of both like I am, it only helps further propel Nero into that awesome character category. I look at Nero and see Cody's story in conjunction with his own. So all in all, that is why I love this iteration of Nero, who appears to have flourished into his own character at last. He's gone far beyond what his original appeal was in his first game. He's left his mini Dante reputation in the past, all whilst growing as a character and having improvements made to his design. It wasn't all intentional, but the failure of the DMC reboot allowed the character to act as a martyr for the Devil May Cry franchise, all while implementing just a tiny bit of the edge of the rebooted Dante to a young boy who desperately needed it. With the growth of similar looking relatable characters out there who echo the character's traits and tropes, I'm really hopeful that we see more of Nero in the future, and given the warm reception to Devil May Cry 5, I think that could just well be a reality. So that's it from me today, but what did you think? It was really cool going in depth on just 2 designs for once, and I hope the result was an entertaining video. Do you prefer Nero's original appearance, or are you in agreement with me? Let me know in the comments below, or alternatively, hop on over to my Discord. It's a cool server where we chat about games, TV, and lots of other things. We've also got a Dead Wrestling channel and a lively Sonic collaboration video in the works. At this time, I'd like to thank my patrons who make videos like this possible, with a special shout out going out to Rug Slade and Proggy Froggy, who are donating at the top tier of donations. If you'd like to help me out, please head on over to my Patreon or my Ko-fi for more info.